Well, autistic burnout is only experienced by autistics. Burnout in general isn't. There are certain aspects of burnout that are universal. Both autistics and neurotypicals can get burnout from overworking. No matter who you are, if you're stretched too thin and not given the support you need, it's going to wear you down. And if you do it for too long, you're going to break down eventually. Other things like not doing self care, not letting yourself rest, or not being given the option to rest, and poor sleep quality are going to lead to burnout. There are similar symptoms that autistics and neurotypicals share when it comes to burnout: fatigue, anxiety, depression, and physical illness are felt by all of us. However, there are plenty of differences as well. Neurotypicals don't have to deal with masking the same way we do. Neurotypicals do sometimes need to mask to fit in with the culture they're surrounded by, like when hanging out with their group of friends or when they're at work. If you want to see a neurotypical mask, go to a retail store and watch them deal with a Karen. That is top-notch neurotypical masking. But this masking is different from when autistics mask. Autistics mask specifically to hide our autism. It's a defense mechanism, and it's often automatic. We don't just do it to fit in, we do it to survive. We're taught from a very young age that our autistic traits should be hidden if we wish to avoid harm. Trigger warning ahead for the murder of autistics. I'm going to wait a second in case anyone wants to nope out. You can come back in a few minutes, or you can just mute the live stream. Okay? You'll know it's safe when the trigger warning is no longer on screen, alright? Okay. So, we see news stories. And we see news story after news story of parents killing their autistic children, and the parents being viewed as loving caregivers forced into a desperate situation, whereas the autistic person is seen as nothing but a burden. Autistics being killed by cops isn't anything new either. I remember a story in the news about a mother calling the police on her teenage autistic son who was being violent. The mother just wanted the police to talk her son down, but instead they killed him. This is so much more true if you are autistic and a person of color. It makes sense that autistics who see those sorts of stories will try as hard as possible to hide their autistic traits in hopes of avoiding death. There are even stories of, oh, yes. In the Sia movie, Music, there was a lot of backlash because there was a scene where the autistic character, Music, gets restrained. And restraint in the past has killed autistic people, especially children, like in schools. You've heard, I've read stories of kids autistic children who are having, emotional outbursts, and the teachers would pile themselves on the child, and they'd eventually die. So you see this and you're like, well, gosh, if I don't hide the fact I'm autistic, I'm going to die. So, yeah. So, trigger warning, down. Okay, off that topic. Let's get back to the topic of autistic masking in a less violent manner, and why it's different from neurotypical masking. Autistic masking is incredibly draining in and of itself. It isn't just exhausting because we're dealing with a situation that forced us to change our behaviors, but because we have so much that we need to ignore and control. We have to endure stimuli that can be overwhelming and we can't escape. Itchy clothing, loud music, too many people talking at once, bright lights. We just have to suffer silently with this. And when we want a stim to calm us down, we can't. Another difference between autistic burnout and neurotypical burnout is, as I was talking earlier, the causes. Neurotypical burnout is usually caused by work or school, while those are big reasons why autistics burn out as well. There are other reasons that don't really affect neurotypicals. Many autistics have a lot of trouble dealing with change. So a change in a work schedule can do a lot more to push an autistic towards burnout compared to a neurotypical. I know neurotypicals who jump from day shifts to night shifts and back like it's nothing. I know it isn't actually nothing. It's probably pretty stressful, but they can keep it up for years. Other things are, of course, sensory issues, as I was saying before. An autistic is most likely going to be a lot more stressed out in an uncomfortable uniform or noisy environment than a neurotypical. Autistics are also going to be less likely to make many, if any, social bonds with classmates or coworkers. So they'll feel more isolated. If it's a retail job, an autistic is more likely to have social anxiety or be socially awkward than a neurotypical. I know someone who got fired from a retail job because they couldn't control the volume of their voice. So they kept unintentionally yelling at customers. Keeping a job is often a lot more difficult for autistics. And having that as a constant stressor can be really draining. To walk into work every day knowing there's a chance you might be fired because you'll behave in a way your employer or customer may deem inappropriate. Say you're stimming or you're how do you spell it? Say this. Echolalia. Sorry. Echolalia? There we go.
There you go.
Causes you to repeat what someone said to you, and suddenly you've lost your ability to pay rent and bills.